Hello YouTube. Alright, so I did a little video recording of me installing a $27, we'll call it. It was $26.65 Fender Eliminator I found on eBay for a 2020 Kawasaki Ninja 400. So as the video goes on here, I'll explain certain things. It was a really simple install. This is a no-cut video that I think it's 39 minutes long. That's start to finish. It was pretty simple. It didn't come with instructions, but it's pretty much self-explanatory when you take out the old parts from the plastic fender and then you put them in this Fender Eliminator and install it. Right here, I'm fumbling with the wires. The connectors on these things suck. They're just little tabs that eventually I grab a pair of pliers and I put the plier underneath the tab and I just pull them out. But first I'm gonna fumble with them. Off to get some tools. Like I said, this is a no cut, no edit, real time, start to finish. So if you want to jump around or fast forward, feel free. Alright, so I will tell you, at first I thought I was going to grab a little flathead screwdriver and push down on the back of the tabs of these wires, and it didn't work. So then the second time I go grab tools, I'm going to grab a pair of needle nose, really small tips, and I try to clamp the back of it, and that didn't work either. So then eventually I just used the tip of the needle nose to pull up on the little tab, and if you try to do this, you'll see it real easy. Just push up on the tab, they pull out. This is me doing so you don't have to. Wait for it. Eventually I'm gonna realize that I can't get it with a screwdriver. If you're actually watching this whole thing, I guess I'll add in here that I just bought this bike yesterday, and I actually ordered the Fender Eliminator kit 6 days ago when I did the financing online. I'll probably do a video of buying a motorcycle during this awesome COVID experience. It's contactless, I guess, and then you set up an appointment and you go in and everybody's wearing masks and nobody's near each other, and they slide the paperwork over and she has like this laser pointer thing to show you where to sign. It was pretty crazy. But here I go to go get some pliers. And at first here, I'm trying to clamp down on the back of it with the tip of the pliers, and it's not working. And then eventually I have a light bulb moment where I realize I can just lift up the front of the tab and they pop right out. So these three wires, you got the left blinker, right blinker, and then the license plate bulb. The license plate wire is actually way down inside the harness, and then the turn signals are easier to get to, but there's a big rubber boot inside that you have to fold back and push down, and it was awesome. So here I grabbed an Allen key, and I'm going to break free the four bolts holding in the fender, and then I'm going to switch and grab a longer one. This one here is all the ones connected together, like one of the little kits you can buy. And then eventually I grab, I think it was a 6mm, and then I'll spin them out and pull the fender off. So here comes the last bolt holding it on, and then when it drops down you got to pull the wires through this little like 1" by 1" square hole. And here it comes. The biggest connector is the license plate light. So I will bring it over to the camera. That is the fender. I don't know why they put them on all the bikes. Why they don't just have these under the tail section, fender eliminators, as they call them. Maybe it's a California regulation. It's everything to meet California code. Is a pain in the butt. So I'm just going to pull these wires through, and then I'll grab an Allen key, and then there's 4 bolts holding the metal frame in. One, 2, 3, 4. So now I'm going to grab an Allen key and take out those 4 bolts so I can get the metal frame out of the way, so that you can unscrew the license plate light and then the turn signals. This is right from the factory, so they're super tight. You'll see I struggle with them a little just to break them loose. So here I show you on the bolt, it has a metal insert, like a sleeve that slips over it, so that when you screw it in, it pulls tight to that sleeve, so that you can't over tighten it and crack the plastic. It's actually pretty ingenious, because it hits the metal frame underneath, and it's just the right amount of space that you can crank these things down and not worry about cracking the plastic. It's engineering at its finest. But, I mean, this is, I'm just going to unscrew these four. I mean, I even want to hit fast forward, but I can't because I'm doing a voiceover. Alright, so you see, just pull the wires through, and then that's the metal piece that keeps the plastic nice and stiff, and I'm going to set that aside, and then we'll start taking out the pieces that we're going to put on the fender eliminator. I'm going to start with the license plate light, and just 2 screws holding it in. They are screwed into plastic, so they're tight the whole way out. And then they have these washers on them that have an indent on the inside, so that when you screw it, it pulls through the indent a little, so you can get them nice and tight. So there's the washer, and then it has the indent on the inside there. And I'll show the indent a little better when I put it back together. And then the other side, I read all the forums of different fender eliminator kits, a lot more expensive than the one that I found on eBay, which I'll put the link in the description. And a lot of people had problems stripping these screws out, which I don't understand. I mean, just get the right screwdriver for the job. I have a number 2 and a number 3 tip screwdriver, and you'll see me swap between them. But that's it, just those 2 screws, the 2 metal washers, and then it pops out. And then I'm going to take out the 2 plastic, rubber grommets. These rubber grommets will be installed in the fender eliminator, and it doesn't seem like they're going to fit at first. Like, the holes seem a little smaller in the fender eliminator, but they fit perfectly fine. And on one side of them they have a flat spot. That's what goes towards the center hole where the wire pulls through. It's funny sitting here watching myself and to see how much I use my belly as a table. Alright, and now for the tricky screws, because the screwdriver's kind of on an angle, so I mean, I can kind of understand how some people strip these out, but it's plastic. It pushes out of the way. You know, you just make sure you push in nice and firm. You'll see right there, it cracked loose. Just unscrew it. I don't know so many people strip these things out. When the screw comes out, there's a metal tab, like a big washer square thing that has a little tab that sticks in. It only goes in one way, but that piece comes off, and then there's another piece inside the rubber of the turn signal that has like 4 little teeth holding it in. And I'll just take a flathead screwdriver right here, and I'll get it underneath the one corner of it, and then just kind of pop it out. And then you see it just pops right out, and then the wires actually through the one side of the hole. And when you put it back together, the wire's offset in the turn signal, so you can only put it back one way. And then when you pull these out, you want to grab them. The light side should come out first. So you'll see here, I grab it from here and then I pull back towards me. And then it just pops right out, and I'll set it inside until we reinstall it. The second side here is much easier because you can put the screwdriver through the hole so you can get it straight on. You don't have to worry about stripping out the second one. But same thing, first the little metal tab comes out, the washer thing that has a tab on it fits on the outside, and then I'll grab the flathead, which is in my pocket, and I'll get it underneath the one corner and pop it out. So that's the piece that fits inside the grommet. And then I'll do the same thing here. I'll grab it from the light side facing away, and I'll pull back towards me, pulling out the front piece first, and it just pops right out. There you go. So you're going to see here that I actually grabbed the pieces to rebuild the fender that belongs on the bike, so this way when I store it, if I ever sell this bike, I can sell the original fender with it. Obviously not put it back on. I mean, I think they're super ugly hanging off the back of the bike, but every bike has it. Just going to put the metal frame back in with the 4 screws. Bolts, whatever you want to call them. And there you go, the metal piece frame is back in, and then I actually went to sit it down and I saw the 4 Allen bolts that held it to the bike, so I figured I would throw those back on it too, because you don't need them for the Fender Eliminator because the studs are built into it, and then it has a washer and a lock nut that goes on top. So I'm just going to throw these back in here so I don't lose them. Alright, so here is the $26.65 Fender Eliminator, bag of hardware. There was 4 little itty bitty screws that came with it that I don't know what they're for. But you'll see here, first thing I do is I take off, it has plastic caps on the 4 studs, I guess so the threads don't get damaged in shipping. So I'm going to take those off. And like any smart install, the first thing I do is try it and make sure it lines up, because it would suck if I took all these blinkers and everything and license plate light and put it all in it, and then went to put it on the bike and it didn't line up with the 4 holes. So always check first. I'm going to start with the 2 rubber grommets that go in for the license plate light, and then like I said, they have a flat spot on the one side that's going to go towards the center hole where the wire goes for it, and I will show that when I put it in. But like I said, these holes seem really small, like it's not going to fit, but sure enough, I mean, they popped right in. I've seen kits for $70 and as much as like $129 that do the same thing that this $26.65 piece do, which is why, you know, it was awesome when I found it on eBay, and that's why I thought I would do a video about it, because it's a no, you know, no name, no branded, and everybody's a little skeptical. Will it fit my bike? Blah blah blah. Yes, it'll fit the 2018, the year they came out with, all the way up to the 2020s, and it even fits the what is it, the Z400, the naked version of this bike. So here's the license plate light, and now that I have the 2 grommets in there, just gonna slide right on, and then it has those 2 washers with the divot in the one side, which I'll show you here, and the divot goes towards the grommet. So there's the washer, that's the divot side, and that goes towards it, and then I'll start the screw, and then remember that these screws are screwing into plastic, so they're hard the whole way through. And then I'm actually using a number 2 tip here, but I will come back with a number 3 tip that fit it better, and I'll snug them down as tight as I can get them. You can see right there that the screwdriver slid a little bit, so I go over and grab the number 3. Nice and snug. And there's the tail light. Now, I show you the blinker here, and it has writing on it, so you know that if the writing's the correct way, you're putting it in right. I mean, they only fit in one way, but, you know, I always get, like, it would be super dumb if I put it all together and hit the left blinker and the right side started flashing. So you just put the back side in first, and then I just use my finger to push the front side in, and it's just a rubber piece that snaps in there. It's the actual, you know, metal clip that goes on the back, and then the other piece that sandwiches it, that holds it in nice and tight. My neighbor's air conditioner just came on, and don't worry, special treat, spoiler alert, in a couple of minutes my backyard neighbor is gonna start mowing his grass. But I wanted to leave this audio track in, maybe somebody enjoys the birds chirping. So when you put that inner piece in, I slid it under the 2 teeth in the back and then held it with my thumb, and then you kind of snap in the front, and it, you know, fits in there nice and snug with the four little rubber teeth holding it in. And then this piece can only go in one way. There's a little tab that goes in on the end of the bottom piece, and then the screw just screws them together, and then from the 2 of them going together, it it kind of like pushes the rubber out a little so that there's no possible way that it can fall out of there. And there I was grabbing a screw with my mouth because it's a magnetic screwdriver and it pulled it off. And then you see there the number 2 slipped a little, so you just got to be careful. One side in, next side to go. Almost done here. Same thing, I'm just showing you the writing is the right side up, and then you put the back in first, and then you push towards the front, and the rubber grommet will snap in. It's the opposite of the way you took it out, because you pulled from the light side back. Now you're doing from the back side forward to the light side to put them in. And same thing, I'm just going to put the inner clip in first and then the outer clip with the tab. And then this one's a little harder to screw in because you're on an angle. Just got to make sure you're pushing in firm, you don't want to strip out any screws. But there's the one that the wire goes through, that clips in on the inside. That's the one that clips in the 4 rubber teeth. There's the outer piece, and I kind of show you the tab, and then I'll just set it on there, putting the tab in the little slot on the bottom one, getting the screw started with my hands, and then cranking it down. See there, I grabbed the other screwdriver and I'm just making sure it's snug. And here we go. Everything's all together. There's a rubber grommet that goes on next. That there's like a 1 inch by 1 inch square cutout that the wires go through in the bike, and then this circular grommet goes in a square hole. And it actually does cover everything up, and it makes it, you know, water tight there, so that while you're driving and water's kicking up, it's not going inside your bike. So I'll just fish all 3 of the wires through this. And then I go back at the end, after the video cuts off, and then I fix that grommet and I make sure it's in that square hole. But here I'm just going to pull the wires through, and we're getting ready to install it on the bike. The license plate light has the biggest connector, so that's one I'm feeding through first. And then the turn signal ones are, I don't know, they're like 3/8 by 3/8. And the turn signal, or the license plate one, is like 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. So it's about an 1/8 inch bigger plug. Which doesn't make any sense because all 3 of them have the same size mold. So I'll get all 4 of the studs through. I'm going to grab a washer first and show it for some reason. Washer goes on. And then I'll grab a lock nut. We'll get the lock nut started, and then eventually I'm going to have to go get my socket set. So there, I was just showing you the nut. I take it over and I was just gonna grab, you know, the socket that I needed, but instead I bring back the whole set. It turns out to be a 10 millimeter, and it has to be fairly deep because the studs are pretty long that go through the bike. And there's my neighbor cutting his grass. So awesome. He must not have known I was recording a YouTube video because he never would have did that to me. Yeah, right. Alright, so here I am. I'm going to bring it over to the camera and show you that it's a 10 millimeter. If you can even read that. So I'll kind of crank it down, but not all the way until I get the next bolt in there. Because there's a little bit of slop, and you'll see I'll twist it from side to side. There's like an 1/8 inch of play, and you just got to make sure it's straight. So here's where you see there's like an 1/8 inch of play. So I kind of get it the way I want it, and it moves anyway, right there. And then I'll just kind of crank it down, and I'll check it again. And then I'll crank down the other side. I did a cross pattern, so I did the front, towards the front of the bike left, towards the back of the bike right. They're the first two I did, and then I put the other ones on. And then I'll do cross pattern when I come back and tighten them down with a ratchet just to make sure they're nice and snug. You only want to do a job once. Washer and the lock nut. So it's a 3/8 drive. I had to put a 1/4 inch down step on there, and then here I'll just snug them up, make sure everything's super good, don't want nothing moving, falling off the bike while I'm driving. And put everything back in its corresponding spot where I grabbed it from. Alright, so here's the wires. So they're pretty much color coded. Obviously the license plate connector is bigger than the other two, so can't mix those up. And then when you get to the turn signals, they're actually color coded. One's gray and one's black. It's a bit of a struggle once I get them connected, because if you think about how far the original fender is back, it's like another 6 inches or so. So you have a bunch of wire to try to cram into the rubber boot, which I might just go back and throw a wire tie around all of it. You don't really go in there. There's the storage bin to the right of it. You'll see at the end. I'll put my registration and insurance card back under there. But the toolkit is actually under the seat. The main seat, not this back seat. And then here, I'm pretty much just starting to fumble with the rubber boot that you have to pull back up and then try to cram, get like 5 to 6 inches of extra wire on all 3 of those wires. Here is a U-shaped grommet. It's rubber that all the wires go through, and then down into the boot. So I'm just gonna get all 3 of those wires back in that, and then it just pushes down, and then at the top kind of closes. Like, you can still pull it through if you try. I'm just fumbling with the boot here. It's like, the old Nintendo controllers, when you used to want to turn left, you had to move the controller to the left, but it didn't do nothing. It's kind of like me walking around the bike here. I'm just trying to figure out how to cram these wires in there. Eventually I get them nice and snug in there, and I'm pretty happy with it. All 3 lights, and I'll even test a brake light, which I didn't touch, but just to be sure. I hope you enjoyed the video. I wanted to do it unedited, whatever, so that you can see start to finish. I've never done this before. It's a brand new bike, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. I've never done a voiceover before on a video. I kind of feel like I should have just talked through the video, but I thought it would be better this way. I could explain what was going on in case I missed anything. If you liked it, you liked it. If you didn't, you didn't. If anything, look down in the description. You can get the Fender Eliminator with tax for me, living in New Jersey. It was $26.65. The item price before tax is $24.99. And I do believe it ships from California. So here I'm just testing out the brake light, and then I'm going to grab the tripod, move the camera around. There you go. You can kind of see that the license plate light is on. When you turn the bike on, the lights are always on, which I kind of like. So there's the left turn signal, right turn signal.